Hello friends, this is Saurabh here, back again at Progressive Coder. Today we are going to talk about ReactJS Functional Components. Over the years, functional components in React have become more and more important, even though a few years back they were just considered an afterthought while writing React components. The most dominant form of writing components were class components, which are still being used heavily today, but React functional components have caught up in a big way, especially after the introduction of React hooks. However, people who have been writing their components as class components have found it a little tough to change to the new mindset of writing functional components. In this video, I am going to show you how to write functional components and how they are different from the class components, and we are going to write some code and see our application come up using functional components. So if you haven't subscribe to this channel as yet, I will definitely request you to please go ahead and press the subscribe button. Also, don't forget to press the bell icon so that you get notified as soon as I upload a new video. We are going to look at several such discussion points in the coming videos. So without wasting more time, let's start writing some code and see how functional components look in real life. Alright, so time to look at functional components. So what is a functional component? Let's start with building one. So as you can see, I have a React application bootstrapped over here, and all it does is render the app component on the browser, and currently there is nothing to show over there because the app component is totally empty. But as you can see, the app component follows the approach of a functional component. So we have function app and then the function symbol, and then we have parentheses. So just to create a functional component, all we have to do is say we have a constant variable, a welcome message of some kind, hello world from my first functional component, and then every functional component should return some sort of JSX. So in this case, we are going to return an h1 tag, and we are going to put the welcome message over here. And that's it. That's the functional component. So you might wonder, what is a JSX? JSX is just a way for React to glue the HTML along with the JavaScript variables that you might have in your application. And in this case, we have h1 tag that is basically rendering the welcome message. Let's save it and see it in action. So I have just saved it, and our application has been compiled successfully. Now we can visit the browser and put localhost 3000. And yes, we can see that our functional component is working and returning the hello world message to the browser. Now you might be wondering that normally a React application is created by a group of components where the parent component usually passes prop variables to the child component. How does that work out in a functional component? So let's create a child component. We can do that in this file itself, and let's create a component called welcome title. The job of this component is to basically render the welcome message that is coming from the parent. So it is going to take props as its input, and all that it does is it basically returns the HTML or the JSX part and takes the props.welcome message out of basically takes the welcome message out of the properties object. And to use this component, what we have to do is, instead of this thing, we can simply say welcome title and then have welcome message, and then pass the welcome message into the component's props. So this particular welcome message variable is now available as part of the props object, which we then used to render the h1 tag. Let's save it. And if we go to the React application and if we refresh, we still see the same output. Maybe we can change the message a bit. Hello world, from my first functional component calling a child component. And if we save it and then refresh, we see the same thing. Hello world, from my first functional component calling a child component. So as you can see that our functional component is able to receive props from the parent component and render or return the JSX using variables out of that props object. So there's another way to do it. Instead of using the props object explicitly, we can also use a new feature which has come as part of ES6, and that is known as object destructuring. In that case, how we will do it, instead of using props explicitly, we can directly get a handle on the attribute that we are interested in. So in this case, we are interested in the welcome message attribute. So we'll directly use that, and then we can simply remove the props object from over here, and this makes our code much more cleaner. If we save it, a build happens, and if we go to the browser and refresh, we still see the same output. So this is basically using ES6 object destructuring to make our components look even more clearer and not get too bothered with the clutter of addressing through the object chain. Object destructuring isn't the only feature that ES6 brings to the table. There is also another feature that can help us improve our functional components even further, and that is by using arrow functions. Let's see how we can do that. For this app component, we can write it like const app, and we can get rid of this part and then simply change it to an arrow component like so. Similarly, for the welcome title, we could put it like this and also substitute it with an arrow component, and all of this part is not required. The only thing is we have to still use object destructuring to get the welcome message out of the props object. And that's basically it. Even if we refresh now, we should see the same output. Now with arrow functions, there is another small touch you can do. Right now we have these parentheses for one statement. Actually it is not required. We can simply remove the return statement like so and get rid of these parentheses. And this is also basically doing the same thing, since we have only one statement. So by default, this particular JSX will be returned by this functional component or this arrow function. And if we refresh now, no compilation error. And even now, if we go back to this and refresh our page, same output. So this is basically all the different ways you can write functional components in React, which are, by the way, becoming more and more popular over the coming years. And they have basically, for new applications, they have virtually replaced the use of class components. In the coming videos, we'll also look at how to do state handling in functional components. So stay tuned. If you have not subscribed to this channel, I will definitely recommend you to please go ahead and subscribe to Progressive Coder and also press the bell icon so that you get notified whenever I upload a new video. Have a nice day, everyone. Goodbye.